Hey there, everyone. So, I thought today it might be cool to show you something I'm working on, give you a behind the scenes look at some voice acting work that I've been doing lately. I am working on some narration at the moment for a really, really cool series called Flavor Nurse. With a group that I've recently joined called Love Anarchy. It's so cool. It's so exciting. And I really am excited to share with you what my process has been so far and what I've been finding that works for me. I'd love to do this. Again, I like the idea of some unscripted, just kind of real time behind the scenes work. So, why don't we go ahead and dig right in? I'm going to show you where I'm at. I'm recording into Reaper, which is my digital audio workstation of choice. And I've got my microphone here. It is a Rode NT1A, recording into not a super crazy interface. I'm recording into a Behringer UMC 404 HD. So really the microphone and the interface are pretty attainable, I think, by anyone that's sort of getting into this as a field here. I do have some pretty crazy studio monitors, but I'm not using those for this. I'm just using my trusty Logitech headphones here. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over. Let me get into Reaper, and hopefully this is going to work and switch over for you. So here we go. I've got Reaper loaded up, and you can't see it, but off to the side of my window here is my script. And I have already recorded some of the narration work. So you can see right over here. I'll go ahead and just play a brief snippet of this.
Strides towards the command deck, her velvet cloak flowing behind her. The band sinks into the plush seating. Sabias eagerly pours himself a drink from the bar's collection of glowing green spirits, while Gaius tunes his guitar absent-mindedly.
So, just to give you an idea of what the narration is like, let me skip ahead over here to a section that I haven't done yet. And so, I'm going to find the last line I recorded. Okay, so I know where to look in my script, and I am looking at the characters at the moment, kind of reading through their lines, just getting a feel for what's going on in the scene. One thing I found that is really handy is if you have a good idea of what's actually happening. Of course, ideally, you will just read the whole script. And really sort of internalize it as you go. Sometimes you can also get away with kind of reading, the section that you're working on, but you should at least read ahead some. Ideally, though, you will read the whole script and you'll really, understand the trajectory of the story, which can inform some of your acting choices, because even something like narration work is still voice acting. So that being said, I am going to dive right in. I've got my track selected here. I've got it armed for recording. I do have a vocal chain set up here, which I can go into as well. But it's not anything too crazy. I'm using an EQ. I like FabFilter Pro Q4 is fantastic. Really the industry standard at this point. I'm using a Waves Vocal Rider, and Waves Vocal Rider is cool. It allows me to set a target audio level, and then I can give it a sort of general guidance of up and down. It's a little bit like a compressor, but really it's an audio leveler specifically for voice. It does some wizardry behind the scenes to understand voice content. And then I've got two instances of FabFilter Pro C3, which was just released, one with a longer attack time and sort of like a slower release, just a slower setting overall. And then another with some faster attack and faster release. And those are really just meant to complement each other, and they're not doing much. They're really only doing a few dB each of compression. I'm finding that the goal really with good neutral and clean sounding processing for audio is simply just don't go too crazy with it. I'm also going into Waves L4 limiter, and that's just allowing me to catch some really sharp transients if they happen to come through, and then into Soothe, and that's just allowing me to Soothe 2 rather by Oak Sound, to just tame down some of the harsh sibilants, and just to attenuate some frequencies that we might not want. But they're not doing anything too crazy. This is really basic stuff. So, and kind of importantly, you could do it in just about any DAW with mostly any tools that you have. But here we go. I'm going to go ahead and read. And I think the one last thing I will say that's really important here is, sorry if I'm knocking on the microphone, hydrate, drink, and keep your voice healthy. The last thing I think, and then I'm going to read, is you want to keep your voice, depending on what you're doing, but for narration work, you really don't have to yell. You don't have to talk loudly at all. I tend to speak really into the microphone, and you'll learn to sort of play the microphone like an instrument. But I find that you can get away with just talking at a very comfortable volume, and you don't have to yell. So let's get started, and you'll see there's a technique that I use for recording where I try to get all my breath in at the beginning before I start reading a line, and I do that in between phrases and sentences, so that while I'm actually narrating the line, I don't have to breathe mid-sentence, and I can choose to do that if I need to for an effect, but I don't need to do that, and that makes it so easy to edit the line. So you'll see that as I work here. All right, let's go. So my line is going to start with Raven Darts. So I'm going to start recording. Raven darts a conspicuous look across the cabin before inexplicably diving under his coat, peeking sheepishly out at it as an announcement. And so I messed up there. So what I'm going to do is go back. And what I'll say as well is if you do mess up, it's okay. It's fine to make mistakes. You can just cut them out. I tend to edit live while I'm recording. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just stop, take a breath, and redo that line. Raven darts a conspicuous look across the cabin before inexplicably diving under his cloak, peeking sheepishly out as an announcement casts through the ship. Okay, and I can see really easily here where I've restarted. So I can see that I've got a nice sharp breath there, and that's a visual indicator for me to know right where I need to cut. So I'm just going to click the S key to split the track, and I'm going to delete that, that media item, and I'm going to drag that back here. Okay.
Raven darts a conspicuous look across the cabin before inexplicably diving under his cloak, peeking sheepishly out as an announcement casts through the ship.
Okay, so I think that sounds just fine. So I'm going to take that back, and I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to get to my next line. Let's see here. So the next line starts right here. Oops, I made a mistake. I didn't go far enough back with that right here. All right, let's go ahead and scroll down here. I want to get a feeling for where my narration is landing with regards to the rest of the lines from our other voice actors. I can see that my narration here has gone over a bit. So I'm going to, enable ripple editing. All right, and I've got a shortcut here. I'm going to do ripple editing for all tracks. And I'm just going to grab the first media item that appears below. So let's grab that and drag it over some. And I'm just dragging it to where it's past where my narration is there. And so now I am going to go ahead and unsolo and make sure that that makes sense.
Arriving at our destination. Please stay seated. Landing procedures engaged.
Perfect. So now I have lined up the beginning and the end of my narration, and I'm ready to move on to the next line. So let's go ahead and just get a little bit of that going here as well. And this is going to be introducing the beginning of the next scene. So in order to do this here, I am going to, let's see here, get to the next part in my script. And it looks like this is a longer narration, so I'm going to take several breaths, several pauses while I read through it. I'm not going to rush. That's one thing that really can set apart a professional narration, is that you don't need to rush. There's no need to try to get every word in as fast as you possibly can. So I'm going to go ahead right now and just go ahead and start recording. As they step off the eminence to the city surface, the skies are a gray, dark smoke. From the height of the platform, they gaze the horizon of a suffering, industrialized world. A labyrinthine cityscape unfurls before them. Clearly once an elegant structure built in harmony with nature. It now stands suffocating in decay. I don't like the way I read that, because that line should be a bit darker. So let me take that down. It now stands suffocating in decay. A hostile welcome beckons them down. A hostile welcome beckons them down as they are met by an entourage of syndicate thugs led by the kingpin that dominates this earth. So you can see there that while recording that, I realized that the line I was reading warranted changing my tone, and that's something that you need to do. That's, again, where narration is not just reading words. You are the eyes, so to speak, of the listener in the world. And so especially when you're in a role like this, where you're portraying the omniscient sort of voice of God, so to speak. And so you really need to perform to the scene. And if something is saying that it's suffering and decay, suffocating, and there's a hostile welcome, we shouldn't be reading that with a neutral voice or with even an upbeat voice. We really want to lean into the weight of the scene itself. So I'm not going to say it now stands in suffocating decay, right? I really want to bring that down and say it now stands suffocating in decay. A hostile welcome beckons them down, right? I want to take that low. I want to really let some of those words have the impact they deserve. And the other thing you'll probably have noticed, I'm sure you can see in my little window there, is that I tend to be animated when I read. I want to get into the mind of the sort of, or into the world itself. I want to feel it, and I'm not afraid to make silly faces when I'm reading. I'm not afraid I need to throw my hands around or sort of gesture and really kind of work myself in. Sometimes it looks silly, but you know what? It sounds good, and as they say in audio, if it sounds good, it is good. So what you can see here now is that this has gone far over and beyond where this needs to be. So that is that time now for some editing. So I'm going to listen back.
They step off of the eminence.
So I messed up.
They step off the eminence to the city surface.
Mhm.
The scup. From the height of.
Okay, so I know that this was a good take. I'm going to click on that and click delete. Oops, I do have ripple editing enabled still. So something you want to keep in mind is if you're doing this kind of work, you are going to definitely want to be mindful of whether ripple editing is on or off. At the moment, I don't want it on. Ripple editing means essentially that when you start dragging a clip around, it will drag that clip and every other clip that is right where that is or after with it. And that makes it very quick and easy to edit, but you need to be mindful of it while you're doing that. So I'm going to come in here and use S to split the media item right at the beginning of the line. I'm going to pull that back to where it needs to be. Okay. And I'm just going to play and listen.
Off the eminence to the city surface, they dark smoke. From the height of the platform, they gaze the horizon of a suffering industrialized world. A labyrinthine cityscape.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and snip here, and I'm going to drag this over. I'm just going to get rid of the breath entirely there. Pardon me. And I'm going to drag this back. Now, one thing that you want to do is remember that the listener, there's a psychoacoustic phenomenon where the listener sympathetically will breathe along with the narrator. Now, in the case of an audio drama like the one I'm working on here, there's going to be music and Foley and sound effects and lots of things happening. And so the noise floor is never going to be very quiet. And so these sort of very quiet, subtle breaths that sometimes happen in between words and sentences naturally, we just don't need to hear those for this kind of narration. But our brains are so attuned to knowing where a breath should land that if you try to play back sound too quickly, what's going to happen is from one line to the next, if you don't allow any space where a breath would be, our brains don't like that. It makes it sound like you're rushing. It makes it sound like very unnatural and mechanical and robotic. So I will just leave a gap there and I'll allow there to be space, even though I could bring these clips together. So I'm going to play it and listen.
From the height of the platform.
Okay, and that sounds good to me. So now I'm going to go ahead and just do the same here. I'm going to listen in.
A labyrinthine cityscape unfurls before the horizon of a suffering industrialized world.
Okay, so this is going to be the same thing. Now I see there's a little click here, so I'm going to just snip right before that, and I am going to go ahead and bring this over here to the beginning of the next line and drag that back. And you can see where this workflow is very efficient. When you, in between each phrase, you stop, you pause, you breathe in sharply, then you read the next line. Your lungs are full of air. You're not going to feel the need to yawn so frequently because you've got fresh oxygen in your lungs. You're topped off, and so you're not going to have to breathe in between words. And your sentences are going to sound like they're very well supported by your diaphragm and your breath support, because they will be, because you're not going to be struggling against having that last little bit of oxygen in your lungs and you're trying to get it all in. And so you don't have to do that. You can just fill your lungs up before you start speaking, read your line. You won't have to stop to breathe. And then when you're done, take a breath and do the next line. And again, it shows up so clearly. You can see it right here. And you can see there's another breath over here, and so on and so forth. So that's my workflow. That's how I record my narration. I don't know if you're going to have been able to hear the actual output of the of my Reaper session here. What I need to do is probably get voice meter nano banana, I think, or voice meter banana meter. What is it called? Voice meter banana. And that's an application that lets you run sort of virtual audio cables between applications. So I think I do need to do that. I don't have that set up at the moment. But you'll be able to imagine, you've heard what I was reading previously. Most importantly, I just wanted to show you my process. And so let me take a drink here. To show you kind of what it's like in real time to record and narrate. As you do this, you get quicker, you get better at your workflow, and you'll find ways to speed up time. You'll find I found that this method of creating a visual sharp breath is the best for long form narration. It ensures that you don't have awkward breaths in between words and sentences. It gives you an easy place to visually identify on the timeline where you need to cut. I will give you one last tip here before we go. You can see that my media items for audio are showing both a waveform and a spectrogram. And the spectrogram is, if you're unfamiliar, it's showing essentially how loud things are throughout the entire audio spectrum, starting with very low bass all the way up to the highest and treble up here, and sort of mid frequency information is over here. And so you could see a breath is essentially white noise, and white noise manifests itself as an equal spread of information across the entire frequency spectrum, which is what you can see here. Whereas my voice, especially being lower and with a deeper resonant tone to it, you can see a lot of energy down in the low end of the audio file. And so that's something else that really helps you to kind of visually identify the difference between speech and unwanted sounds or breaths and things like that. So that's it. I think that's going to be the video. I don't want it to go on too long. I just wanted to give you a bit of a peek behind the scenes of what it's like to do narration work at home. You can see I'm in my home studio. I'm not in a vocal recording booth, but I do have my walls treated. I've got some good thick carpet underneath of me. And so I don't have a ton of echo in here really. And there are ways to mitigate reverberation in a recording, and maybe I can get another video in at some point here and show you how I deal with that when that does arise. But a lot of it really comes down to truly at home, get up to your microphone if you need to, lower the gain and get right up to the capsule. Now you can see I've got a sort of broadcast setup with a really thick pop filter from a Shure SM7B over top of my Rode NT1A, as well as a really good Stedman Pro Screen XL. So having great pop filtering is very, very important for this. And it can stop a lot of plosives and unwanted sort of deep rumbly bass sounds every time you go pa 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 pa. And so, but that's it. I think that's enough tips for today. We'll get into some of the nitty gritty of editing, perhaps in another video, once I get a better routing setup for getting audio out of Reaper and into the my capture software here. So anyways, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys make something awesome. I hope you guys are doing well, and just keep creating and take care of yourselves. Okay, that's it for now. So long.